Welcome to another episode of Square State Sandlot. I am your host, Bill Montoya. Joining me again is the regular Raph, and we kind of joked before, may as well just make you a co-host at this point as much as you've been on. So we've got a lot to talk about. We will be discussing the week that was in the NFL. Josh McDaniels, again, so much fun to talk about. We'll talk about your 49ers. We'll have a surprise showing, maybe just audio, I don't know, from Loag to talk about his Carolina Panthers and where they stand after 7 weeks. Major League Baseball playoffs, which we're in the midst of a Game 7 right now between Arizona and Philadelphia, so we'll talk about that. It should be over by the time we get to that portion of the podcast. So a lot of exciting things. I actually have a proposal for the playoffs that I want to bounce off you and see what you think about it, so that'll be fun to get to. We'll talk about the Wyoming Cowboys and their tough loss to Air Force, as well as how some of their injuries are progressing. And then season tip-off for NBA is tonight as well. So as soon as we get done podcasting, I'll be watching the replay of my Golden State Warriors opening game, so that should be fun to look at. But Raph, you got anything to say before we get started here?
No, let's get going.
All right, let's get our hands dirty here. We're going to talk about Week 7, and the start of Week 7 was the Saints and the Jaguars, and that was a closer game than I thought it was going to be. We had a 31-24 final score in the Jaguars' favor. Did you hear any feedback from this game at all? Because I know I heard a lot.
I did see all that stuff about Derek Carr yelling at a receiver when he overthrew him by, 100 feet. In the air.
Ball almost went into the stands, and he was yelling at the receiver for not stopping or something. And there's some inner turmoil there because Michael Thomas on Twitter said that Olave isn't even part of that route tree. Like, he's basically just a decoy. He just is supposed to run a fly, and then everyone else is part of the progression, but not Olave. So there's a lot of finger pointing going on in New Orleans, and I think that's partially because where they are as a team right now in terms of their record. You haven't had great performance from their quarterback, which they were expecting. I don't want to say I told you so, Saints, but I told you so. It was a lot closer than I thought the game was going to be. Honestly, I thought it was going to be 31-14 in Jacksonville's favor, but I think those Thursday night games are always tough to project who's going to win them, especially it was in New Orleans, so I guess that gives them some sort of an advantage. But anything else in that game that you wanted to talk about before we move on?
No. I guess Olave tried to take out his frustrations while driving his car.
Yeah. Olave did get arrested. Was it yesterday morning?
I don't recall. I think
it was either yesterday morning or this morning, going 35 over. Yeah, in a speed zone. So, yeah, I don't know what that means for him in terms of availability. I assume there's usually during the legal process they don't suspend guys, but that's a bad look, especially after what happened with Henry Ruggs and the Raiders 2 years ago. You feel like the NFL's probably going to want to take a decent stance on this to try to curb this from happening. He did try to pull the "I play for the Saints" thing, so Cop didn't seem to care much. But all right, so we'll move on from that game. Next game that was shocking to me was the Bills at the Patriots. Bills really have not looked good. I mean, honestly, they haven't looked good since they played in London. Raiders made them look really good, world beaters. Then they played very well against the Dolphins, and then since then they have not played well. And I don't know if it's an offensive thing. I know defensively, allowing 29 points to a New England team that hadn't scored. I think they'd only scored over 20 once up to this point in the season. So that's not a good look.
I thought they hadn't had a touchdown or something. Like an offensive touchdown. Was that them?
I don't think so, because they scored a couple against the Raiders. But no, it was just puzzling. I mean, Mac Jones had a really good game. Defense has not looked the same, and I think some of that's to be expected because of the loss of Matt Milano and Daquan Jones. But you have plenty of guys on that defensive line. I think Milano's the bigger loss from those two, and then obviously Trey White went out with that Achilles as well. So they're down 3 starters on their defense, but they've shown the ability to overcome that in the past, and maybe it's just offense isn't clicking and the defense isn't playing well enough to overcompensate for that, or to compensate for that. So could be that. I don't know. Bill Belichick was going for his 300th win. Maybe his team was picked up for him. I'm not sure what happened in that game, and it is division games, so those ones are typically hard to pick anyway. But in recent history, the Bills have pretty much dominated that series. So I guess it was at least puzzling for me, and I think this game knocked out a bunch of pick'em or eliminators as well. So, which game did you end up picking? You picked your Niners?
Oh, no, Green Bay.
Green Bay, that's who you picked, yeah. Okay. All right, so we don't need to go any further into the Bills game other than just saying, I don't know what's going on with them. I think they can figure it out on offense. It's just, it seems to me that they're missing Brian Daboll. The offense has definitely regressed the past 2 seasons without him, and I kind of wish he was back because Ken Dorsey is decent, but it seems like he's just trying to do what Daboll was doing, like almost losing to the Giants the previous week and then losing to the Patriots the following week. It's not a good look for the Bills, so we'll see what happens with that going further into the season, but they are going to need to make some changes if they want to get where they want to be at the end of the season. Did you watch the Colts and Browns game?
I was watching Red Zone, so I saw quite a bit of it because they were going back and forth a lot.
Yeah. Well, and that game it started at the same time as all the other games, but there were still like 9 minutes left in that one because it was so high scoring when all the other ones were finishing up. So I think I got to see like the last 7 minutes of that game, even though it wasn't the one I was watching. A lot of back and forth in that one. And I picked the Browns in this game just because of what their defense has done all season. Gardner Minshew is a great quarterback, especially in, that backup or spot starter role. And he played a great game. I don't want to dismiss anything that he did. Colts looked really good on offense, but they didn't play any defense. And the Browns with P.J. Walker, I was definitely not expecting them to score a ton of points, but I figured they would score enough to beat the Colts. What are we celebrating?
Arizona just won.
Yeah, okay. Just making sure we're on the same page here. So, yes, Raph blew it for our MLB section here, but Arizona is headed to the World Series. Arizona Diamondbacks, that is fantastic, to face the Texas Rangers. So, gotta love that. Absolutely love that. I mean, their payroll, I think, is $130 million less than the Phillies. So, very impressive for them to win that game. Oh, Benny's texting me now to celebrate. So, all right. So moving on from that game, I mean, I don't know what we can really discern from this. P.J. Walker, maybe he's the quarterback going forward. I know they've
because Watson was cleared to return, and they opted to keep him on the bench. So,
well, I don't think it'll be a long-term thing. I think it was more they just didn't want to put him back out there and he get re-injured. But anywho, something to keep an eye on. I think P.J. Walker provided a spark, and he was definitely a decent quarterback for Carolina when he was in.
Sorry, my ESPN website just started talking all of a sudden.
I'm going to say, what is that noise? But okay. So we'll move on from the Browns game. Other than keep an eye on the P.J. Walker situation, I know they've committed an ass ton of money to Deshaun Watson, and that's going to probably keep him in the loop for the next few seasons going forward. But I mean, if PJ Walker gives you the best chance to win and you're in a place where you feel like you have a chance to compete, you should go with the guy that you think is going to give you the best chance to win. So something to keep an eye on there. Next game, Falcons and Buccaneers. That was it was almost like the Falcons kept trying to give it away, but the Bucs were like, no, we insist. Please, you win this game. And I did pick the Falcons. And then right before the game, I switched because the Bucs were at home. Desmond Ridder hasn't been playing super well. So I flipped right at the last second. Should have kept with the Falcons because I do believe in the Falcons. I've said this all year. I don't know why I let myself talk myself out of that one. But
I mean, you were probably thinking you made a good choice with Bijan not getting any play time. And then at halftime, there was like, oh, he's sick.
Yeah. Well, and now, of course, the NFL is asking the Falcons why he wasn't on the injury report if he was sick. So that may have some repercussions for the Falcons going forward. The league has not been taking those types of situations lightly. In fact, I can't remember who was the last one that violated those reporting rules, but they lost a draft pick or two, if I remember right. Might have been the Patriots even.
Why do they care?
Well, it's competitive advantage if you're, preparing for one guy and then he's just not going to play.
I don't know. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh, you prepared for our supposedly
I would say it's probably
running back.
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably not as big a deal for like a running back as maybe like a quarterback, where if you're preparing for like Anthony Richardson and then Gardner Minshew, who goes out there and you play completely different play styles. So maybe that would be, I don't know, but they definitely take it seriously. So anyway, Falcons had like multiple fumbles right at the goal line. Drake had one, Drake London, and then Desmond Ridder had one as well. I think one of them ended up that stupid touchback rule where if you fumble it at goal line, then the other team takes over at the 20, which still hate that rule. But anyway, that was the Drake London where he did that like front flip.
No, I think they marked him down.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't see the result of the replay, but it didn't look like his glove had touched out of bounds before. So
it did. He brushed the grass before he lost control.
Well, then he got lucky.
I don't know if they scored from that though.
I don't know. I mean, that game was it was back and forth, but it was like no one wanted to score. And then obviously Younghoe Koo at the end of the game kicked that walk-off field goal. So Falcons stay in it. They're top of the division. I still feel like they may make a move at quarterback, which I don't know. I mean, I feel like you almost have to stick with Ridder the rest of the season just because even if you bring someone in, how quick are they going to be able to pick up a playbook in the middle of the season? So if you make a trade, it's probably going to be more of a forward-looking trade. But if you don't feel like Desmond Ridder's the guy in this division, it's wide open for them to take it. So I feel like you got to make some moves to be aggressive and get your team over that hump and walk away with the division. Obviously, all you need is a ticket to the dance to have a chance at the end of the season. But I feel like only one team is coming out of this division, so it's pretty important to get that division championship if you want to make it into the playoffs. So we'll see what they do. Another shocking game, and we won't talk much about it, but Ravens beat the brakes off the Lions 38-6. What do you take from this one?
I don't know. That was just so unexpected out of the Lions.
Yeah, I did pick the Ravens in this one. I liked them just because they were at home. I I feel like the Lions have definitely been playing in quite a few emotional games. Ravens, I don't know, their offense seems to be clicking a little bit better. Even though they scored 38 points in this game, it still didn't look super fluid. I mean, this was still one of the best games that Lamar's had, and I think him shining allowed that to be the score. But I still feel like they're working through some issues in that offensive system, and the fact that they're able to beat Detroit 38-6 while they're working through some of these issues, I mean, the Ravens could definitely be a dangerous team going forward. So I know Kyle's not going to like to hear that, but I feel like they're the cream of the crop in that division right now, with the Bengals being down. Steelers keep winning somehow, even though they have no offense, but the defense is just like, fine, we'll do it. Which you can definitely win games that way, but I don't know. I just have more confidence in the Ravens than any other team in that division.
Yeah, I mean, with the Ravens last week, with all those drop passes, I was kind of expecting more of the same, but even Aguilar, I think, got a touchdown. So I guess I can't underestimate them anymore.
Unlike Aguilar. All right. So, yeah, we'll move on from that one. Like I said, it wasn't close. We won't spend too much time on it other than saying it was kind of a surprising result. Another surprising result was in New York. I guess technically New Jersey, but New York Giants played the Commies, and I feel like everyone had the Commanders pick just because the Giants have not been playing good ball all season. Daniel Jones out. Their basically entire offensive line is out. Had the recipe of being a complete blowout in the Commies' favor, but for whatever reason, they couldn't put together any offense. Defense was good enough, I guess. I mean, you're holding a team to 14. You should have the opportunity to win that game, but offense just did nothing. I think Howell, probably his worst game he's had all season. So, I don't know. I mean, we don't need to spend a ton of time on this, but it may be the start of a rebuild for the Commanders. I feel like they thought they were going to walk away with this game and come out in a good place. What are they now, 3-4?
Yeah.
Yeah. Felt like if they had won this game, maybe they're a little more aggressive at the deadline to buy. But now I think they may ship out Chase Young because I don't think they're going to extend him. And if they can get something in return, may as well get something rather than just letting him walk in free agency. So we'll see what happens with that. Darren Waller did have his first good game this season and first good game as a New York Giant. So that was good to see. Helped me win my fantasy matchup. He finally had a good game. So I went 2-0 this weekend, which has not happened all year. So not bad.
I did 1-1. So
yeah. Okay, we'll skip the Raiders and Bears game. I'll talk about that one a little more in detail further down. Seahawks and Cardinals. I didn't pay too much attention to this one just because
I didn't pay any attention to it.
So we won't spend much time on that. I did see a couple highlights of the Seahawks defense, especially Witherspoon just absolutely destroying a player on a screen pass. Still kills me that he wasn't available for the Raiders at number 7 when we drafted Tyree Wilson. He was far and away my favorite player in this draft on the defensive side of the football. So good to see him keep tearing it up. Obviously, wish it would be with my team instead of the Seahawks. But anyway, Cardinals, we'll see what they do with Kyler Murray. Sounds like he is practicing and everything. They want to see what he's got. I feel like they're more likely to trade him than they are to actually run him back out there on their team. But who's going to take the bait on that? I don't know if anyone will. So they may be stuck with him, but I think they are going to draft a quarterback this upcoming offseason. And maybe he goes back to baseball. I don't know. They still have his rights, I think. Okay, moving on. We had Steelers and Rams, another close game. I mean, really seemed like every one of these games this weekend was close. But Rams and Steelers. Steelers ended up winning this game 24-17. And I thought the Rams were going to win this game the entire time. I think they were up 17-10 in the third quarter or so. And Steelers had that TJ Watt, looked like a damn cornerback, jumping that route and taking it back. Let's see. Rams were up, 17-10. Yep, 17-10. Started fourth quarter, and Steelers ended up scoring 14 unanswered. Big run by Jalen Warren tied it up, and then Najee Harris. And
I was going to say, Canada looked pissed about that play, too.
he looked really happy about the Jalen Warren one, but Najee Harris, he does not like him because Najee has been offering his feedback on the offensive play calling and such, especially during the bye week. So he's not a big fan of Najee, so he didn't look too happy about that one, even though, it eventually ended up winning them the game. So a lot to unpack there with Steelers. Like I said, they somehow keep winning, which is impressive, and you got to tip your cap to Mike Tomlin for piecing this thing together because offensively they are atrocious. The fact that they scored 24 points, I mean, I feel like, again, their defense is keeping them in games, giving the offense multiple opportunities to score points. So, and then scoring some themselves quite a bit too. So I wish Kyle could break this down. Like, I don't think Kyle has been on once to talk about his Steelers yet this year. So
well, he's been a busy beaver.
We got to fix that soon.
And vacations and
I know. There's no more time for the pod, but that's okay. We'll get him on to talk about his Steelers. I mean, at least at the end, maybe, but hopefully at the halfway point, which is coming up here pretty soon. So
when they make the wild card.
Yeah, when they make the wild card, avoid another losing season somehow, despite Canada. Okay, the game that probably chapped your ass a little bit, and that is the Broncos. Well, I guess it chapped mine as well because I was hoping the Broncos would lose, and they ended up winning. But Broncos win 19-17. Another curious game. I think the Broncos got out to like a 9-0 lead. Or the Chargers. Chargers. I'm reading all these other scores too. The Packers looked very lost offensively. Jordan Love looked amazing in his first two games, and since then he has been struggling mightily. I mean, the Raiders beat him, for God's sake. So, yeah, being beat by the Broncos and the Raiders is not a good look for the Packers, and I feel like they are en route to a tailspin. No team in that division really looks good other than the Lions, so I feel like the Lions may lock up that division before too long. Bears, I don't know. Who knows what to think of the Bears? They've looked really good in certain halves, and they've looked really bad. But like I said, we'll talk about the Raiders here in a second and what they did to them. But yeah, anything you really want to talk about? Packers, Broncos? Mims looks good for the Broncos. I think they need to get him more involved. I think they'll probably trade Jerry Jeudy. I think they'll probably trade Justin Simmons. I think there's a lot of moves coming for the Broncos to get ready for the upcoming draft and looking towards the future. You've already seen them trade off a couple assets. They actually just cut Frank Clark, and he'll probably go back to the Chiefs, so great for them. Speaking of the Chiefs, we had Chiefs-Chargers. We won't go super detailed into that one. I just did want to mention that they traded for Mecole Hardman from New York, so that'll get another familiar weapon back to Patrick Mahomes. They haven't looked good on offense all year. Go ahead.
I was going to say he already had an impact in that game. I think he got a touchdown.
Oh, I didn't even think he played in that game because they just made the trade. Okay, well.
Pretty sure.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Look that up. I will say getting another option at wide receiver. I feel like Tony has probably worked his way out of that rotation just with all the drops, fumbles, all that fun stuff. So I think McCole Hardman will be huge. Obviously, you have Travis Kelce. He's playing out of his mind, and we have the sideshow that they have to cut away to every time someone makes a play. We won't talk about that, but Chiefs look good. I mean, defense has been carrying them all season, and if they start to get things going on offense, they're going to be the favorite to win it all again. Hate to say that, but it's looking that way. Obviously, you have the Dolphins and a couple other teams in the AFC that are playing well, could compete, but they're looking like the favorites, and I think they may have the AFC West locked up by a couple more weeks into the season. So
I was wrong about Hardman. He did get one catch for 6 yards, though.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't even think he played in it, but that's fine. I think he'll definitely get reintegrated in that offense. Andy Reid loved him. So, and obviously having someone familiar with the system that can step right in and make plays is never a bad thing. So we'll keep an eye on the Chiefs. I think they have moved to favorites now.
He had a 50-yard punt return.
Oh, that was the play I remember seeing. And everyone was saying, oh, man, it reminds us of, who was Weapon X? I can't remember his name. But, I can't remember. But he was just a phenomenal punt returner, kick returner for the Chiefs probably 10, 15 years ago. I can't remember. I can't believe that I'm forgetting his name. Dante Hall? Does that sound right? I think it was Dante Hall. Anyway, looked like him, and all the guys on the broadcast were saying, oh, man, we got the next Dante Hall here. So, yeah. Anyway, we'll see. He's definitely another weapon to add to that team, and it's not fair. But who cares? We'll just cry about it. And then you have Frank Clark probably re-signing with the Chiefs to add more juice to that defensive line. So fun stuff going on in Kansas City. A lot of fun things going on in LA as well with the Chargers. I think Staley and Josh McDaniels are neck and neck for who's probably going to get fired first this season. You could also see Frank Reich. He just gave up play calling duties, but we'll talk to Logan about that here shortly. And then you have my chinchilla is going nuts on her wheel over there, so hopefully that's not coming through too loud. We'll talk more about the Chargers and Chiefs and Broncos as we get further into the season. We'll probably do like a halfway through the season where everyone's at, what we think is going to happen going forward, and probably do some mid-season awards, things like that. But we'll get into that more. The last game, we got two more games to talk about. We had Eagles and Dolphins. Wasn't super surprising for me. I thought the Eagles would win this game just because I felt like their defensive line would pressure Tua enough to make him make some of those off-schedule throws, and that's really when he starts to struggle. He's been an MVP candidate for what he can do in the structure of the offense, but anytime he gets outside of that structure and you pressure him up the middle, which is the Eagles' specialty on that defensive line, he definitely struggles. I think he's I would even say he's probably a bottom 5 quarterback when pressured. So that was their plan, and they executed it well. And then obviously they played really well on offense. Got that push working real well. Sirianni's very proud about that. So just ask him in his post-game presser.
I should have just ignored you and switched my pick from the Dolphins to the Eagles.
I thought you did.
I was talking about it. You're like, don't copy me.
I thought you did it anyway, but I guess not. So no. I had a really good feeling about that game, and at the beginning of the week when I put my picks in, I had the Dolphins selected, but the more and more I thought about it, I was like, no, this matchup, everything is going to favor the Eagles, especially being at home. So,
yeah, I just really like McDaniels as a coach.
McDaniel or McDaniels? because if you're saying McDaniels, I might be coming to your house here shortly.
Mike.
McDaniel. No S.
I like Mike McDaniel.
There you go.
Coach.
I like him too. He's hilarious. Okay, so let's talk about your 49ers and what's going on with them, and then we'll call Loag because he is ready.
Okay. 2 bad weeks in a row. Like, especially versus the Vikings, we were just letting them throw all over on us. Like,
Yeah, and it's
then
primetime Kirk with no Justin Jefferson, and he dotted you guys up.
I looked that up, and before the game, I think he was 4-2, or was it 4-6? I don't know. Like in the last whatever. Like he's actually hasn't lost. Like he's actually okay on primetime. Maybe he wasn't, like since 2020, he hasn't been that bad on primetime.
Looking it up now. Keep talking.
I mean that fumble from McCaffrey early on that kind of slowed us down, like kind of threw our groove off there. And then we were just playing catch up the whole time, and then Purdy just shit in the bed with those 2 interceptions.
Yeah, he's had a rough couple weeks. I don't know what his recent record is, but his all-time record, well, going into this game, his all-time record was 11-19 in primetime.
See, I mean that's like 33%.
Not bad.
1 out of 3. That's
It's like having Josh McDaniels as a head coach. 2-10 on Monday night games. So I don't know what stats you were looking at, but he ain't good.
I did prime time, so like Sunday night games too.
Yeah. Not good on Monday night for sure. 2-10, but he looked real good. I'm sad I didn't start him, but I still won anyway, so it's fine.
Okay, he's 7-10 while playing for Minnesota on primetime games. So almost 500. He was 5-11 in Washington.
What do they say? Almost as good in horseshoes and hand grenades?
Yeah, almost only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades.
There you go. Okay, so what do you think the root of all this is? Do you think it's Debo being banged up and missing this past game, or combination? I know you've had some defenders out as well. Greenlaw missed that first game. I think he played last night.
Yeah, well, we weren't getting much pressure on Cousins.
That's surprising.
No sacks. No sacks. And then, Jennings, he had some good catches in that game with the Vikings. But maybe it's playing a little more of a factor because you always have to account for Debo, even though like he hasn't been getting that much action, probably because he gets covered by one of the better DBs or something. Then it opens somebody else up. So then they can stick a subpar guy on Jennings and take Ayuk out and, watch McCaffrey more. So it must be. But our defense hasn't been as hard. They've been playing as hard as they're getting paid. So
Yeah, I guess we should mention that McCaffrey, 16 straight games with a rushing touchdown, which is an NFL record. So hat tip to him.
Well, they were saying there's some other player with 17.
Probably with a touchdown, but they said rushing, he had the record.
Okay. Yeah. It was, yeah, 8 touchdown.
Yeah, which, I mean, he'll be tying that next week and breaking it the following, so all good. All right, let's take a quick break. I'm just going to get Loag added to the call, and we'll talk about his 0-6 Carolina Panthers coming off a bye week and what he expects going forward, how happy he is about that 0-6 record, and much more. So let me just get him out of this call, and we will be right back. And we're back, and Loag is joining us now. So, Loag, I know you have some thoughts on your Panthers and their current 0-6 record going into Week 7, or I guess coming out of Week 7. You guys had the bye this past week.
Yes, sir. I got lots of thoughts about the Panthers.
I know you do. So the floor is yours, my friend.
It's disappointing because Carolina has absolutely nothing to look forward to. We gave away all of our draft stock to get Bryce, who is playing okay, but he doesn't have any weapons around him. So we traded up to get the number 1 pick to get him, and traded away the number 1 pick in what's arguably a much better quarterback draft for next year, because Carolina's not going to win a game this year because they're dog shit. I mean, they're playing all right this season, but Frank Wright's openly talking in interviews now about how David Tepper's interfering in day-to-day operations and how it's unpleasant and he doesn't enjoy it, and it's just sad.
Do you think he's inserting himself more because of the results of the season, or?
No, he's done this since the get-go.
Okay.
He brought in Rule, and he gave him a good contract, and he gave him time to try to develop a team. So I think he was a little less involved at the beginning, but as he hasn't gotten results, he's, a typical billionaire that thinks he's good at everything instead of realizing he got lucky at one thing. And, it's just not good. And Frank Reich is got no chance to coach at this point. Like, handing over play calling duties, he's supposed to be an offensive mind. Like, I don't know. It's just sad.
That is what I was going to ask you about. And I think anytime you have a coach hand over play calling duties, it's step one of a short list of steps before they're gone. But do you have any confidence in Thomas Brown as offensive coordinator to make any changes, or do you think it's just going to be more of the same?
What weapons did they pick up? What changed around Bryce Young? You're asking a rookie quarterback who's undersized in the first place to carry the team on his shoulders with no weapons.
Yeah.
They don't have a running back that you can hammer the rock with. They just don't have anything. Nothing. So the team is extremely disappointing, and I don't think it's all Bryce Young's fault. I think you're asking too much from a rookie, period.
I absolutely think that's fair. I did see that they were simplifying the playbook a little bit the last couple weeks, and it seems like it's at least helped. And I think making this change on the bye week, obviously you have a little bit more time to implement any changes that you want to do. You are correct.
Do we really think Alabama's running a simplified offense? Like, he feels overloaded? He's coming from one of the top college programs. Like, it's not an overabundance of plays. It's an underabundance of weapons. You know what would be really good? To have the number 1 pick in the 2024 draft and also have DJ Moore on your team still.
It would, as would having one Steve Wilkes, but,
Well, that's what I find. I've never wanted a cheese grater more in my life. Like, I'm thinking about just buying a scalpel and just cutting it off because, I do not foresee Carolina getting better for the next 20 years. I just don't. For God sure they ain't going to get better in the next 2 years because they ain't got no draft stock.
Yeah, and I did want to ask you, I know you saw the clip that we put out last week about potentially trading Brian Burns.
Yeah, it's a terrible idea.
Well, okay. It does fix...
Let's get less weapons on our team. Let's get less weapons on our team. What are teams after in the draft? They're after a beast of a pass rusher, a good quarterback, and a decent target for him to throw at, and probably a left tackle to protect him. So let's get rid of one of those pieces to hope we might get that piece back in the future. Like, what the fuck is that thought process?
So I think the thought process is you guys aren't going to extend him. That's already been communicated. So if you let him walk, what do you have?
Indianapolis's running back literally demanded a trade during training camp. Said he did not want to be a Colt anymore. And he signed an extension. They are going to say shit to try and keep the price low. I don't think they want to get rid of Burns. I really don't. I think they want people to think that so they can see so they can shop him around, but I don't think getting rid of your best pass rusher, your best defensive player is a good idea. Here's the shitty thing. The way to be successful in the NFL right now is to have a low salary young quarterback and spend your money everywhere else. By the time they have any pieces around Bryce Young, he's going to be due for an extension, and we're fucked because your quarterback eats up almost half your cap.
Yeah. I guess the reason why, and I'm not saying I like the idea of trading Brian Burns, but I guess the thought process is if you're not planning on bringing him back and you're 0-6 with him, you can probably lose 6 more games without him.
Well, what do you mean 6? Call it what it is. They're going to lose 11 more.
Well, right, but I'm just saying.
We're not going to win a game this year. There's literally no hope for my team. None. You know what sucked about being a Raiders fan back in the day? You had hope every season, and they let you down. But Carolina is just a dumpster fire of a team right now. Everything about them is shit, with no hope of getting better.
Well,
I sound like I'm being like dramatic, but it's true. What are you going to do? Are you going to draft a wide receiver next year? With what pick? Your 4th overall pick because you gave away all your draft capital?
Well, yeah, but if you trade Burns, maybe you get back in that first round.
Yeah, maybe at what? Pick 26 because the only teams are going to be interested are going to be playoff contenders?
Nah, Raiders need a defensive end. They're going to be picked pretty high.
I don't know. I would much rather have that number 1 pick. And what really pisses me off is the coaching staff wanted Trav.
Yes. It seemed like your quarterback coach in Josh McCown wanted him.
You. Yeah.
So I don't know where that came from in terms of.
There's a video of it.
No. I saw that same video. I'm saying I don't know where the pick came from. I don't know if it came from Tepper or Frank Reich.
110%.
I don't.
110% came from Tepper. Frank Reich is basically saying that in interviews. The ownership is too involved in football operations. It's just so disappointing because I love Panthers football. I have since I was a little kid. And I've never, ever... I sat through Chris Winkie. We held the record for the most consecutive losses in a season, and I was more hopeful than what I am currently.
I remember. But I do have some good news for you. You guys will be facing the Saints. So I think you have a decent shot at a win there.
Everybody's going to be talking about how the Saints are a Super Bowl contender after they push our faces into the dirt.
I think in 3 weeks you play the Bears.
Got a decent shot there, too?
Might as well throw the Broncos in our fucking schedule, too, and watch us lose that one as well. Well,
okay.
I have zero
Broncos
hope.
beat the Packers, and you have the Packers.
We're just providing some rays of sunshine for Loag.
No, there are no rays of sunshine. I would rather give the Bears a number 1 overall pick because that's what they're getting.
All right,
maybe Carolina can just pay them $1 billion under the table to trade for their draft back.
So I looked, and if you guys do lose out or something close, then you will have the 33rd overall pick.
Yeah, we only got rid of our 1 this year and our 2 next. So we will have a 2nd round pick. But are any of those quarterbacks going to be available in the 2nd?
No.
That are taller than me? That would be nice.
You guys aren't picking a quarterback next year.
No, we're gonna ride Bryce Young like we rode Matt Rule into the dirt, and the franchise is just going to get worse. Matt Rule was a bust of a coach his halfway through his 2nd year. We took him for a 3rd, and now we're here.
Your dream comes true Okay, not
Cam
your dream
Newton's
coach.
back? Cam Newton's back?
No. Let's say Tepper decides to get himself out of football operations and inserts himself a nice VP of football operations. Who?
Well, Raph can attest to what will happen if that happens. The 49ers were in the same boat.
Yeah, we had Jed York dipping his fingers in everything, messing everything up for a while.
Well, I'm just
3
saying,
years.
who would you like that to be if that were to happen? And do you think?
John Fox.
Okay, so John Fox is now your VP of football operations. He gets to hire his head coach, and do you think that changes your forecast of no winning for the next 20 years?
I think if he gets out of the way, if he literally comes to a mirror and realizes, man, I am a dumb person that does not know anything about football, and he gets out of the way, yeah, I could see the team trying to turn it around, but we're going to be shit for at least 5 years. Because here's the reality. If Bryce Young turns out to be a great quarterback, plays excellent, you have to pay him. So how do you pay your other players around him? Like, I don't know.
Well, it's not the typical way to build a team, but like the Chiefs are doing it with Mahomes.
The Chiefs did it with Mahomes. They kicked the can down he's on $1 billion contract, but they don't have to pay him for 10 years.
Well, they actually moved all the money up to this year, the next two.
In a signing bonus, though, right?
Yeah.
They basically played the cap to their advantage with it.
But they are going to have to redo his deal in 3 years because there's going to be no money left on that contract. So, I mean, yes, they're kicking it down the road, but at the same time, his cap hit is still decent. I mean, and there's no reason you guys can't do the same thing. But obviously, he's got to be the quarterback.
He's got to be Drew Brees, essentially, to make it work.
Yeah.
Okay. And here's the thing, though. And I answered your question incorrectly, by the way. It wouldn't be John Fox. It would have been our GM during John Fox's era. He worked hand in hand with Richardson, started our Ring of Honor, brought in our first inductees into the Ring of Honor, cared about Carolina, and then he got fired because Matt Rule was a shit coach.
Marty Herney.
Mart Herney, thank you. He was a good GM. Anyway, send me a cheese grater in the mail. Amazon preferable. It'll save you some money. And Raph, it was good seeing you.
It's good hearing your voice. You always bring a lot of fun to this.
Hey, I do what
podcast.
I can. If I just did not have such a potty mouth. Bill.
It'd make the editing a little bit easier, but that's okay.
Hey, sounds good. And to the audience, pitch in for that cheese grater, please.
We'll get a GoFundMe started for the cheese grater.
Love you, man. We'll talk to you later.
Okay, buddy. Talk to you soon. All right. So the always colorful Loag with his thoughts on the Panthers, and my God, I thought my segment about my Raiders was going to be depressing, but I think that topped whatever I could do. So we'll move on to my Raiders real quick, and then we'll get moving on MLB playoffs. I know we already kind of alluded to that, but okay. So Raiders lose to I guess last time we talked, we didn't do an episode last week, so they were actually looking like they had some positive momentum going, and all of that was wiped away in a loss to the Chicago Bears on the road, featuring their D2 backup quarterback, Tyler Bagent, which all props to him. He absolutely played a great game. They gave up 3 touchdowns to Dante Foreman. So he put up a 3-touchdown game, had some pass catching in there as well. But anyway, in a game that you're going against a Division II quarterback in their first ever start, you feel like you'd have a game plan to stack the box like what everyone does against Jimmy G and pressure him to make passes over the top, take anything underneath away. And for whatever reason, I mean, it just looked like no matter what we had planned in that game, Chicago had an answer, and we had no answers for what they're doing. Keep in mind, this is one of the worst teams in football right now, and they made us look like we were the JV team scrimmaging against the varsity team. I mean, it was awful in every regard, and sadly, this isn't even one of our worst. Well, I guess it's one of our worst losses, but it's not the worst. Got two others that I'll mention here shortly, but Josh McDaniels doubled down and started Hoyer over O'Connell. Hoyer played awful, has not won a start in 7 years, I believe. 2,000 plus days since he last won a game as a starter. And I believe it was for the Chicago Bears 7 years ago that he last won a start.
Yeah, I know he was with the Niners for a little bit, and I was so glad when he left.
Yeah, I mean, there was absolutely no upside in starting Hoyer in this game. And I think the reasoning, I mean, he essentially said the reasoning why is he wanted to play a clean game and felt like the veteran gave them a better chance to do that than O'Connell. He said that he saw O'Connell in his last start, and then he saw both of those players in the preseason, which, if he's alluding to the preseason, O'Connell looked like an all-star or a Pro Bowler in the preseason, and Brian Hoyer looked like Brian Hoyer in the preseason. So I don't know what he was talking about with the preseason reference there. He did say that he sees these guys in practice every day. So I don't know if he's saying that Hoyer looks better than O'Connell in practice, but I somehow doubt that because Hoyer just, I'll give him his props. In the last game, he came in at halftime when Jimmy was hurt and managed to hold on to a 10-point lead, which I think he can do that. He can do those, come in relief and keep the team competitive. But if he has to start, it's kind of like that whole Gardner Minshew, Ryan Fitzpatrick, all those things that we've talked about in the past. Hoyer can come in and do, some mop-up duty, things like that, but you do not want to put him in as a starting quarterback if you want to win that game. So that decision made no sense to me. And then, another atrocious loss in a game that we should win, air quotes, because at this point I don't feel like we should win any games the way that we played against Chicago. And examples of previous games that we should have won that we absolutely got blown out under the Josh McDaniels coaching staff. Baker Mayfield, when he signed with the Rams last year, 3 days prior to the Thursday night football game against us, and we lost to them. He didn't even know the playbook. Like, he was just going in there playing Sundays, schoolyard football and beat the Raiders. And then Jeff Saturday, when the Colts went against every logic in the universe saying, let's hire an analyst out of the booth, bring him in as head coach, even though he'd never coached as anything other than a high school football team. And Jeff Saturday's only win as a head coach came against the Josh McDaniels-led Las Vegas Raiders. So, I mean, I don't know what else I don't know what else Mark Davis needs to see, but there's very clear signs 24 games into this regime that it's not going to work. We're not progressing. In fact, we're regressing in every manner. The offense looks worse than it ever has. Well, not ever. I mean, let's not forget we had Jamarcus Russell as a quarterback. We've had several.
I knew you were going to go there.
Yeah, we've had several quarterbacks that have just not played good football, and the offense has been worse. But this is worse than when he got fired as the Broncos head coach in terms of offensive yards per game, points per game, all those metrics that you could compare. This year's offense is worse than that offense that got him fired when he had Tim Tebow, and then he had not Brock Osweiler. Who was the other one? I don't know. Names are slipping me. But anyway, the Broncos teams that he was running out there, we're worse than those. So I'm ready to move on. I've been ready to move on, but I feel like this, and the fact that he won't take any accountability for any of these things, it's always, well, team didn't play well. We didn't put it out on the field. Practice was perfect. Everything I've done in preparation is perfect, but for whatever reason, we didn't show it out on the field. So that's always his go-to. He didn't take any responsibility for the loss, always blaming people for why they lost. I'm just ready to see someone else up there in those press conferences. And I think the thing that he's done that has assured that he probably will remain head coach throughout the rest of the season is the staff that he put together is not a NFL coaching staff. So I joked on Twitter over the weekend that he just needs more people in his system to be successful. I said the system is actually called the buddy system, where he gets his buddies jobs that couldn't get jobs elsewhere. So that's his coaching system. So we'll see what happens with Josh McDaniels. I think he'll probably be the coach throughout the rest of this season because I don't know who else you're going to put as head coach on the staff. The only one that's even been in the league for any amount of time that you might stick in that role is Rob Ryan. He was our defensive coordinator the last time we had a good defense back in, I think it was probably, 2007. It's been forever. That's the last time we had a top 10 ranked defense, somewhere around there. Maybe it might have been 2009. I don't know. It's been ages, but regardless, Rob Ryan's probably the only coach on this coaching staff that has any experience. He's never been a head coach. No one else on this coaching staff has been a head coach. So I think if you give Rob Ryan that coaching job and say you're the interim, focus on coaching up the men, let the offensive coordinator, Mick Lombardi, defensive coordinator, Patrick Graham do their jobs, and we'll reevaluate at the end of the season. I feel like that's a better move, but I don't feel like that's a move that Mark Davis is going to make. So moving on from that, we'll talk MLB. I know we already said Arizona beat Philadelphia in Game 7 in Philadelphia, and that means they are the National League representative in the World Series. And then you have the Rangers that knocked off the Astros last night in their Game 7 in Houston. So that was this was like my dream matchup of the remaining candidates. How are you feeling about this?
Well, okay. So I liked the Rangers definitely over the Astros. I just wanted somebody new. Dodgers and Astros have been in everything the last few years. Diamondbacks are in the NL West with my Rockies, which I kind of don't like, but Evan Longoria, I don't know if we talked about it on the pod or off air, but he's on the Diamondbacks.
Yep.
He's not playing the greatest, but he was a Tampa favorite, so I'm kind of rooting for him.
He's the only guy you guys ever extended.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. And so, speaking of Longoria, he owns a bar in Tampa still called Ducky's, and 49ers have watch parties at that bar on Sundays.
Oh, nice. Very nice. Like that connection. So yeah, this was my dream matchup of the 4 teams that remained, just because I have a little bit of a connection to Arizona just from living there. We lived in Phoenix for a year and a half.
I did live in Sierra Vista for a little bit.
We've got a lot of family and friends. Well, I guess, family and friends that still live down there. So we go to spring training all the time. Like to go to catch Diamondbacks games when I can. So I like them. Not that I really had anything against Philadelphia, but I definitely did not want a rematch from last year of Astros and Philly. So this was like Rangers, great. Love Bruce Bochy. Love Marcus Semien. A lot of the guys on that team I'm rooting for, obviously, to beat the Astros. So I don't know who I'm going to pull for in this World Series matchup. I almost feel like I have to go Rangers just because of Marcus Semien, but either way, I'm going to be happy just because it's going to be someone that hasn't won a World Series in forever. I think.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat with that. And then I don't want the Diamondbacks to win, kind of like I didn't want the Rams to win, but I wanted Stafford to get a ring.
Yeah.
Like I want Longoria to get a ring because he hasn't won a World Series. So.
Yeah, the Rangers have never won a World Series, and the Diamondbacks haven't won one since, it was 2002? Let's see. Yeah, they had like Kurt Schilling and
2001,
Randy Johnson.
I guess.
2001, okay. Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was 2 or 2001, but yeah, so it's been a long time since they have, and like I said, Rangers never have. So either way, you're going to have a team that hasn't won in a really long time or at all. So it'll be exciting to see. Like I said, definitely pulling for Marcus Semien. He was my favorite A while he was on the A's, and then they gave him that ridiculous contract offer. Don't blame him at all for not accepting that, and always happy to see him succeed. So that's who I'll be looking forward to seeing in the playoffs. Obviously, Corbin Carroll had an amazing Game 7. He's probably going to win Rookie of the Year for the Diamondbacks. So we'll see what they do. A lot of the guys that had been struggling in that series against Philly, they had some key hits today. So I think they're obviously on the upswing, and Rangers been knocking the hell out of the ball. So it'll be exciting.
What we do need to fix is flopping.
Yes. We could talk about that on the next one. All I wanted to really say about NBA is tip-off tonight. Draymond's going to miss the opener. Klay Thompson, extension talks have broken down between him and the Warriors, but I wouldn't worry too much about that. I think he's going to hit free agency, and I think they'll ultimately bring him back. They just want him to see his market value. And then you said what about flopping?
Oh, my thing was like why you shouldn't watch basketball. That was my note. Like Jalen Carter on the Eagles, he flopped during that Miami game, and then he was asked about it, and what he told the reporter was like he thought to himself like, what would LeBron do?
Yeah.
And that's a flop. And then I had a little joke kind of written down. I was like, flopping basketball, like it's a disease, and now it's spreading to the NFL. And if we don't watch basketball, maybe it'll flatten the curve of flopping.
That's beautiful. I will for sure clip this one out and get this out to the masses so your idea can be spread. All right. Anything else you wanted to talk about before we call it?
Nah, I'm good.
Okay.
I got to drive to Sheridan in the morning. So.
Well, we'll get you out of here then. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. We will catch you on the next episode, and we do appreciate you tuning in.